Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Micah, and we're so glad you're here tonight. Tonight, we're talking about the film Still Hope, a powerful movie inspired by the true stories of resilience, healing, and the long road to overcoming the trauma after trafficking. This film doesn't just focus on rescue, it shines a light on what happens after the rebuilding of identity, trust, faith, and hope. Joining us tonight, we have the director, Richie Johns, producer, Bethany Johns, and the star of the film, Luna Rivera, who plays Hope. And throughout this conversation, we're going to be exploring the why behind the film. We're also going to get a special message from a special guest and answer questions inspired directly by the film, because this story doesn't show us something, it asks something of us. So let's jump in by first watching the trailer. We'll see you after.
I've got to be home in a couple hours. What's the plan for tonight? I kind of feel sick. Why'd you park so far away? Where am I? I want to go home.
Your old life is dead. This is your new home.
It's possible that Hope is just a runaway teenager. But the fact that somebody else is involved and has since gone off the radar means that we can't rule out the possibility of an abduction. We are going to do everything in our power to find your daughter.
The more I trust you, the better your life is going to be.
You think she might be stable enough to come home?
I don't believe home is the best place for her. In cases like this, the physical recovery is just the beginning of the healing process. I wish I knew the right things to say.
We just got her back.
She's not back. We need to do what's best for her. This is a safe space.
All the girls here have gone through, what I went through.
Yeah.
I just feel so angry.
You did something incredibly brave. You asked for help. Everybody heals in their own way. It's your heart. You get to choose.
Shelter from this storm.
Welcome back, everyone. If you are just joining us, we are talking about the film Still Hope, which is now streaming on Angel. So thank you so much for being here. We are actually joined by our special guest tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce them now. That is director Richie, producer Bethany, and star of the film Luna. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Happy to be here.
That was great. Thank you so much. And I would love to just jump right into some of the questions that we have about your wonderful film. I first would like to focus on why this story had to be told. It's a very powerful film. I'm sure people just with that trailer that we showed earlier can see how powerful this film is. Richie, my first question is for you, but when you set out to make Still Hope, what part of Hope's journey did you feel the world needed to hear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Hope's journey was inspired by the true stories. We took two different girls' true stories of courage and hope, combined them into one character, and we go through her journey of being abducted, rescued. But really, what we were seeking to tell was the second half. Still Hope really picks up where other films that have told stories of the subject matter before, we kind of pick up where they leave off. We wanted to tell a story and shine a light on what happens after the rescue, the long, complex road to recovery that really isn't a story that's been told before. And so that's what we were trying to tell in the case of Still Hope. No,
that is something that I also felt was extremely unique, because I agree with you. There are so many films that do tackle this subject, but it ends at the rescue and doesn't carry on. So thank you so much for being willing to tell that story. Bethany, my next question is for you, but as a producer, as well as the director, but you have a lot of, there's a protection mindset around the story and what story you want to tell the audience. What was the message when it comes to this film that you wanted to protect at all cost?
Yeah, I think with Still Hope, there were two things that we really wanted to communicate when we set out to make this film. The first one is that trafficking can happen anywhere and to anyone. It is not something that exists overseas. It is not something that only happens in big cities. It has infiltrated really every corner of our society. And so we really wanted to raise awareness to that specifically, but also to the full spectrum of care for trafficking survivors. And that leads into the second thing that we really wanted to communicate through Still Hope, and that it's through a holistic look at healing and hope. We can say that regardless of what you've been through, regardless of your pain or your trauma, restoration and rehabilitation and joy and life and love and all the things that come with that are still possible, regardless of what you've experienced or been through. And so that was really what we set out to communicate. And I think we did it pretty well. But ultimately, people have to watch for themselves and decide.
No, I couldn't agree more. And just to open up to everyone here on the call, but what do you think is the most commonly misunderstood part of the healing process after one of these tragic events? Because like you both mentioned, a lot of films tell the story up into the rescue portion, and then they just don't talk about the healing. What do you think is the most misunderstood part of that healing process? And if anyone just wants to jump in.
Yeah, I think this was something that was shocking to me as we were doing research and learning about the anti-trafficking movement. And I think is something that most people don't realize is the recidivism rate of a lot of movies. Like we've said multiple times already, they focus so much on the rescue and removing those individuals from their traffickers that we don't put a lot of thought or focus on what comes afterwards. And the sad reality is that a lot of people who are removed from those situations end up right back in them because there are not enough resources out there to help support them in a holistic way through their healing journey. And so I think that's something that a lot of audiences are going to be surprised to learn, or that we just don't understand. Freedom for these women, children, and men does not happen when they're removed from their captors. A lot of them are leaving situations that they've been in for years. They may not have an education. They may have an addiction problem to alcohol and or drugs, and they don't know who they are. They don't know how to bake cookies or drive a car. And so I think that that's an aspect of this world and the anti-trafficking movement that doesn't get enough focus, and it should get more focus than it does. But for me, that was something that was very surprising as we were diving into this project. And I think it's something that would be surprising to a lot of our audience members as well.
Oh, thank you for that. Richie, Luna, anything to add?
Yeah, I think Bethany.
No, that's fine. No, that's great. I'll just move on to the next question, which is actually for you, Luna. So something that's extremely interesting about this film is, or I should rephrase that, a lot of films show action and an actor dealing with things externally. An action movie, as an example, you see a person literally fighting and like all this other stuff. With your character and reading through the script, your character deals with a lot of things internally. There's a lot of internal fighting and healing that takes place. What was it like reading the script for the first time and approaching that as an actor?
Yeah, reading it for the first time, I noticed that same thing. A lot of what she's going through is all internal dialogue. And I, at first, especially as an actor, it's like, you train to do it all. Internal stuff, external stuff, all of that. But especially with something like this, when I first read even what the log line was when I was auditioning for it, I was like, oh, there's going to be a lot of, her screaming and fighting and spewing out and saying so much. And I didn't realize while I was reading the script how much anybody sort of like internalizes all of these emotions because they can't speak, they can't do anything. So it definitely was a really big challenge for me as an actor, because it was the first time that I've ever worked on something where most of the film it's internalized. So it was interesting, but I learned a lot and I grew a lot from that. And yeah, I don't.
No, Well, thank you. And to kind of dive more into that, another question for you is, of course, as you mentioned and alluded to, your character goes through so much unimaginable darkness in this film, but never lets it become who she is. I think of just the title alone, which I love the title, Still Hope. It communicates so much with just those two words. But what is something that you would like the audience to take from Luna? Something you'd like the audience to take from her healing journey?
That it is possible. You know, I think a lot of people can see something like this or hear somebody's story and think like, oh, you know, or when somebody is going through the healing process and they kind of take a step back, people think that it's not possible. It is difficult. And like I've mentioned before, and like we all know, the healing process is so non-linear and everything that we go through, but especially something like this. So that's something that I want audience and people to take away, that the people who have gone through this, that they are humans and this isn't who they are. They're not shaped by what they went through. And that healing and freedom from it is possible.
And Luna, as an actress exploring this role, were you able to talk to some survivors, or what was the research and preparation for this role like?
Yeah, I was able to talk to the two girls who this story was inspired by, who Hope's story was inspired by. So that was very powerful. It was actually probably the moment for me where I said, oh my gosh, I was chosen to tell this story. And like, I know that it was the moment for me where I was like, oh my goodness, this is more than just me being an actor in a film. And so I was able to talk to them, hear their story. And then from that, I just started looking at documentaries and stuff. But Richie has been Richie throughout that entire process was actually very helpful. Every single day we were basically messaging each other, and going, you know, scene by scene, line by line, just to make sure that when we got on set, we were just kind of like rolling and going. And so I credit a lot of that preparation from his help, obviously, in his direction. And yet, like I said, meeting and talking to those two beautiful, brave women who wanted their story to be told was a really big eye opener for me. And it also helped me shape Hope's character and story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Richie, the next question's for you. Coming at this film from a creative direction, of course, a lot of movies kind of just, you know, you only have so much time to tell a story. So a lot of like these big events, it requires like a quick fix because that's like all the time you have. So it's just like, boom, and this problem was fixed, the end. And of course, this film doesn't do that, which is one of the reasons I think it's so real. What was it like from a creative perspective approaching this film, showing the length of how long healing can take?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you picked up on it. That's something that we were so intentional about, and that was my biggest thing that I didn't want the movie to turn into, is that that feeling that Jesus is just a quick fix, right? That as soon as she's rescued, she comes home. And then she just starts going back to church and boom, life is normal again. Yes, Jesus will make all things new, but it sometimes, you know, healing is a process, and it's not an event, and there isn't a set timeline. And one of my favorite scenes of the film that I think was just so beautiful, and I felt it when we were in production, and it's a scene where Hope, she's rescued and she gets home. And she's sitting on the back porch with her mom. And, you know, Hope's mom just, you know, she loves her so much. She has all the right intentions, but she just keeps saying all of the wrong things. And, you know, she thinks that she can comfort Hope by saying a scripture or saying the right words. But what Hope needed in that moment was, one, just her mom's presence and just time. I wasn't, and I think that's a lesson that anybody can take in just everyday life when comforting a friend or family member that is going through trauma or grief or suffering or just pain in general. That it's not about the right words that you have to say. Oftentimes, it's just your presence and just being there, and that's a lesson I know I learned even through the process. But that was the biggest thing that, you know, Hope's parents struggle with is they think that she can just come right back they can have their very close church friends over, have a meal together. She can go back to church, maybe have a church counselor. But that's the tension point of like, no, Hope needs some professional help. She needs to go to this place. Restore is what we called it in the film. We modeled it after a ministry called Pure Hope Foundation and Pure Hope Ranch, which is where the stories originated from. And that's the beauty of that ministry and the work that Catherine Lee is doing and all of the advocates doing of walking alongside survivors and the courageous work that has to be done. And that's another beautiful part of the film. That's why it can't be a quick fix, is it focuses on how community is an important aspect to the healing journey. And so I'm glad you picked up on it, because that was one of the biggest things I was so careful with, especially in finding in the edit, even once Hope got to Restore, is that it wasn't an immediate fix then either. That, yes, Hope had been home and now she's at Restore, but, it takes years. And even the kind of ending montage of the film, we don't know how long that was. That was years of time that we see in just a span of minutes of Hope finally getting to the place where she can forgive and finally be truly free. So yeah, it is a process, not an event.
Very well said. I couldn't agree more. And Bethany, the next question's for you, but to Richie's point about the scene between the mom and Hope and her really not knowing how to interact, because to her, of course, Hope is struggling re-entering normal life, and normal life things to her are very, very difficult. So as an audience member watching that and being like, oh, it's just, giving her dad a hug. Like, how hard is that? But of course, that's extremely difficult. So in scenes like that you guys chose to portray, what do you hope the audience takes away from viewing scenes like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I hate to just repeat what Richie and Luna have said. But if you're not catching up on a theme by now, you've not been paying close enough attention. But I think, healing is a process. And I think it's that grace is required. If you yourself are going through a healing journey, right? Like, we all have pain. We all have things that have caused us hurt, and we hold on to those things. They impact us. We all have to go through a healing journey at some point for one thing or another. And I think that's where grace is really powerful. We have to have grace for ourselves as we walk through our own healing journeys, whether, that's a couple days or a couple years. It can vary from person to person. But I think it's also a good reminder that when you're walking through a healing journey with someone else, to have grace for them. And I think that I sympathize for Hope's mom, right? But she feels like she's done all the right things, right? You took her to the hospital, you got her detoxed, and now you're having a good family dinner and you're having people over and you feel like you're doing all the right things. But Hope just isn't able to give her mom what her mom desires, which is for Hope to be normal. And that requires grace. And so I hope that's what people feel. I hope that's what they take away in moments like that of, healing isn't linear. It is hard work. I think as Christians, we sometimes like to pretend that it's easy, and it's not. And so I think that's the big thing that we want people to walk away with, is understanding what true healing really looks like, but then also being able to enter into those situations with grace and with love and compassion.
No, I absolutely love that. And to all of what has been said by all of you, I love the phrase that you chose to use in the film, which was courage to heal. I think that is extremely well put, because it takes a bunch of courage to heal. And it takes courage for people to, like you said, Bethany, to surround those people and give them grace and allow them time and space to do the healing as well. So for people who might just be joining us for tonight's interview show, we're talking about the film Still Hope, which is now streaming on the Angel app. So if you would like to watch that, you can go to angel.com/stillhopeguild. There you can watch the movie or sign up for the guild and then watch the movie. It's well worth the guild membership. So please do that. Go there, sign up, watch this film. You'll be better for it. But I'd like to next jump into another segment of tonight's show, and we actually have a special video from the therapist, Jennifer, who is actually the actor who played Wilma, the therapist. Did I say that correctly? Was it Wilma? Was that her name? It's the other way around, isn't it? I'm flipping it in my head. The therapist,
You're good.
which was the character, and the actor's name was Wilma. There we go. We have a clip from her, so let's go ahead and roll that.
I think Jennifer represents in Hope's healing journey is evidence that things can get better. I think Hope sees Jennifer, and I think she sees in Jennifer that there is serenity on the other side of tragedy. And so I think for Hope in her healing journey, Jennifer becomes this anchor to not only like hold her in one place, to really keep her grounded. And so I think for Hope, she's hope for Hope. As weird as that sounds. Because I think we have a really skewed way of looking at recovery, thinking that it's one and done. But recovery is a lifelong journey. It's progress versus perfection. It's the tiny steps and the tiny choices that we make day to day versus the big, grand gestures. It's in those tiny steps that we start the big changes. And I think people don't understand that recovery is a lifelong journey. It's not just, doing this one thing and that's it, it's over. It's the process of it all. And so I think that I hope more people will understand that it's not a one and done. It's a lifelong journey, and it's progress over perfection. That you aren't alone, that even if you feel alone, and I think that trauma, you can feel really isolated in your trauma, and no matter what trauma you've been through, I think you always feel like a victim, because you were a victim to this trauma. But please know that you are not alone. There are people there that want to help you, that have been through the things you've been through, and that you are stronger and more resilient than your trauma. And you're brave as well. I think in real life, hope feels like a whisper. Sometimes it's so quiet, especially in the darkest times. Hope feels impossible to have, and it feels naive, and it feels childish to hope for something better based on what you see in front of you and have this like dream that like, wow, maybe things could get better. It feels like impossible. But I think even a mustard seed of hope can make a difference. It doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to be grand. I think on the other side of trauma, you've got to have a mustard seed of hope, because in that mustard seed can grow a massive change. And sometimes it does sound and feel like a whisper, but if you trust in that whisper, sometimes that whisper is the voice of a higher power that you might need to listen to at that time. So that's what I think it is.
Wow, such a powerful video from Wilma. Just to jump into some questions around that video, Luna, I'd love to ask you, of course, with Wilma's message communicating a lot of the weight that people who have gone through something like this carry. Did you feel that weight carrying these stories as an actor? And if so, what was that like?
I eventually did. It was swept me off. It didn't feel so much as it did as we continued filming, just because at that point, it's like you're getting so much more into the character, into the stories, and you're learning more about just all of it. And so I started to feel the weight for sure. And I will say it was very difficult, but I was surrounded by, and I say this all the time, I was surrounded by the best. I couldn't have been surrounded by better people to have been telling this story. Like Richie was always just checking in. Bethany was always checking in. Just literally every single person on the set was always checking in because the topic obviously is very difficult. And how long? We filmed this for like 26 days, right? 26
Yeah.
days.
26
Yeah,
and
26.
27.
I think it was technically 27, but
Long.
it was a long
Lots of overnight.
Okay, well, 27, but I was on for 26 of those days. So apart from feeling already the intensity of all of that, because it's every single day we're dealing with a different emotion, with a different scene. It was a lot. But like I said, being surrounded by so many incredible people, wanting to tell this story, and then just wanting to make sure that everything was okay with me, honestly helped so much. So I felt very blessed.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And Bethany, to you, what stood out about about Wilma's video message to us?
Yeah. Goodness, we love Wilma. She's great. And I think Wilma does such a good job portraying who Jennifer is. I can't tell you the amount of comments we've gotten from people at various organizations who deal with the aftercare part, and they've said to us, like, I've had those same conversations. Like I've had those conversations over and over and over again with people who are going through recovery. And I'm so fortunate for her to be a part of this and to handle the role with such grace and care that she did. And because her role is so unique, right? Like Jennifer herself is a survivor. She is someone who has gone through the healing journey, but she's taken that and she said, I'm going to use it to help those like me. And I think that's really, really special. And I love what she said, which is kind of funny, of like, Jennifer is Hope's hope in some moments, and you really see that through that. And so, yeah, I'm just really grateful for Wilma's participation and just what she brought to the role and the gentleness that she shows. And actually, one of my favorite moments in the whole film, I won't go too into specifics so that people actually watch it, but something happens, and it causes Hope to kind of spiral a little bit. And we see her kind of barge into Wilma's office, and she interrupts another session. And I actually didn't connect with this for until probably just a few months ago. And Wilma just very sternly says, oh, we're going to talk about this later. And I just told Wilma, I was like, she does such a good job of balancing the gentleness with the authority and the structure that Hope needed. So I am so thankful for her and what she brought to that role. I think you got a taste of who Wilma was through that video, and our movie is better because of her.
I love that. And Richie, both Luna and Bethany mentioned the team around this movie, whether it was Wilma or other people you had on set that created this environment around this movie, this protective environment as well. What was it like surrounding yourself with this team?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, I'd say the team I don't think was ready for Hope. With Luna mentioned this a little bit, is portraying Hope, but just the heaviness of the subject matter. I know that's something I wasn't ready for. But the crew was resilient, and our entire cast. We had many long days, lots of overnight. There's a lot of night in the film, and especially in the first half of the film. And so I know all of us, it was just a hard movie to make, and you definitely felt the weight of what we were portraying. And we did our best to give the actors that space to be vulnerable, and just to feel that weight, but also to kind of give Luna space to reset and process. I know oftentimes I did a lot of takes because we want to get it right, and I think that's the other thing, is that the crew was resilient and committed to telling a story that feels real. And I know that was my favorite compliment from the theatrical release and after the premiere. We had a wonderful event with the many ministry partners, and it was really just a night of celebration of the work that had been done. I had a lot of the team there that made this film possible. But my favorite comments were the people that came up, especially that are people that are in the space, the Jennifers of the world that are doing the courageous work that is necessary to have the Jennifers, and that's why we had to include Jennifer in the story. But the comments saying that like it felt real, that's when for me it's like, all right, the team, we did it. That was what we set out to do, was to tell an authentic story that, yes, is hard to watch. It is heavy, but it is necessary. And the sad reality is it is true. And so for people, hopefully they can take away that like, okay, what can I do about this is what we want to, kind of be the follow-up. So, but I couldn't have done it without a phenomenal team, from costume designing. Malia did such a great job. Julius, our cinematographer, made it look so incredible. So many great shots that I'm really proud of. The score, Kenji, my composer, editing, Sarah had a great blueprint thanks to Randy and Mitch. The list goes on and on and on of just a great team. Production design, Clark and Sean, the whole team. It's not just me. I was blessed to steward it, but I couldn't have done it without a great team. And of course, I'm partial, but I had the best producer, my better half, Bethany. We're married. We're not brothers and sisters. Some people ask, I don't know. My better half, Bethany. Nobody I trusted more to steward the project well.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And as we wrap up this part of our interview, we're going to be finishing up talking about the story and everything, and we're going to jump into guild questions and some final thoughts. But before we do that, I'd love to just open the table, open the mic, and just, is there anything that you would like to tell our Angel audience about this film that you haven't had a chance yet to say? And I'll just open the mic.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm just very thankful for Still Hope to have a home on Angel. I think it is I love the Angel team, and I'm excited to have another title on the platform. But I think in other ways too, the catalog of what Guild members can currently watch. I think Still Hope is the perfect follow-up to Sound of Freedom. I know I mentioned earlier, other films that approach the subject matter that really focus on the first half, the rescue, which is such an important work, and we need that. But I think what makes Still Hope so special is it's the follow-up. And so I think any audience member that, saw Sound of Freedom and we're left with, the tension and, it's a beautiful story. The team did such a great job. I love the film. And so I'm honored to even just have the title that is really a great follow-up of, okay, what is next? What happens after the rescue? And I think Still Hope provides that. And then also can move audience into an action of what is next. How can I be a part of this effort of the follow-up, of recovery, of the process in this healing journey that isn't linear, like that we've mentioned so much. So I think it's a perfect follow-up to Sound of Freedom. So it has a great home on Angel.
Thank you for that. Very, very well said. Anything else that we'd like to say before jumping to guild questions? Okay, let's just jump into it then. Before we do that, if people are just joining now, we are talking about the film Still Hope, which is now streaming on the Angel platform, the Angel app. So if you are not a guild member, though, go to angel.com/stillhopeguild. There you can watch the movie, or you can sign up to become a guild member. Also, if you have the app on your TV, your phone, you can sign in there, become a guild member, and watch this extremely powerful and important film. With that being said, let's just jump right into the guild questions and final thoughts. This film is not just raising awareness, it's also pointing people towards action and real support. I couldn't agree more. It's more of a statement. We don't know who said that, but I totally agree. That's great. Let's see if we have a question here. Still Hope has partnered with organizations like Pure Hope Foundation, Refuge for Women, Elijah Rising, Life Choices, a bunch of these different organizations. Are there anything, or is there anything you'd like to mention about these organizations that partnered with you?
Yeah, I think when we set out to make this movie, we didn't want just want to leave people of like, all right, you've gone through this incredible journey, and now what? We wanted to provide really actionable next steps for those who watched it and wanted to take next steps. And so we have formed what we are calling the Still Hope Project. And it's basically 7 organizations across the spectrum of care in the anti-trafficking movement. And these are organizations that have been vetted by Pure Hope Foundation and Catherine Lee. And They kind of have our stamp of approval of like what you see in the movie, the care and that healing process. Those are things that are honored and implemented in these other organizations as well. And so those are just some organizations that we have put together. Obviously, there's hundreds of anti-trafficking organizations across the United States, and we would encourage audience members to get involved with one that's local to them. But in the event that there's not one, or they want to go above and beyond, we have put these 8 together in what we are calling the Still Hope Project, really to provide actual next steps for audience members, and to bring awareness to the work that they are doing, because so many of them, Catherine Lee and others like her, do a lot of invisible work. We've talked a lot about how the recovery process is not featured in other trafficking films. And because of that, a lot of people don't know the work that it takes to walk with survivors daily as they go through recovery and healing. And so, we're happy to shine a light on those individuals like Catherine Lee who are doing that courageous work, but then also to provide actual next steps for audience members who want to say, okay, I've gone through this journey with hope and like, I can't not do something else.
That's absolutely wonderful and necessary. So are these organizations mentioned at the end of the film, or?
Yeah. So at the end of the film, there's a QR code. Natalie Grant talks a little bit about the trafficking world and what can be done to help those who are caught in that. And her organization, Hope for Justice, is one of the organizations that are a part of Still Hope Project. So scanning that QR code or going to stillhopemovie.com is where people can find out more information.
Thank you for that. So please, if you're watching and just watch this movie, and it's perfect that you guys included that, because so many of the films that we have released and many of the ones we have that deal with this topic, they do have like action items or next steps. But I think it's so wonderful that you guys included that right at the end of the movie, because that's when you're feeling that passion in that, like, we have to do something sort of moment. So,
right. And I think too, one thing that I love about the organizations we've put together is they're across the spectrum. So it goes all the way from prevention. Hope for Justice has a really cool online safety resource guide for parents of how do you keep your kids safe online. And so we're going all the way from prevention all the way through how do you be an ambassador? How do you support and advocate for these organizations in your community? And so there's so many different ways that people can be involved in the movement of anti-trafficking and fight against it. It's not just for people who want to bust down doors, but it's also for people who can teach these women how to bake cookies or how to drive a car, or help with them further their education and so on and so forth. And so we're happy to provide that, and it's something that we felt was really necessary and important.
Yeah, one other thing I'll throw in here is, like Bethany mentioned, Still Hope was ultimately made as a film to be a tool, not just to raise awareness, but, to mobilize viewers into action. And so sometimes it feels like the subject matter is just so daunting, or, some of the numbers and statistics just feel overwhelming, that there's not any tangible ways that you can support. And so, because of the film and because of, now being on Angel, like your Angel Guild membership, and by supporting Still Hope and watching the film on Angel, goes directly to supporting the work of these ministries. And so all the revenue generated from the film goes directly to the ministries that are connected with the Still Hope Project. So that's the unique thing that most films can't say, is that, hey, because of this film, actual work is being done and lives are being changed, and forgiveness and redemption. There's restoration. It's beautiful work that's being done. And so, yes, by having a guild membership, by watching Still Hope on Angel, audience members are actively working to eradicate this issue.
Thank you so much for sharing that and taking the initiative when it came to creating this creative piece, while also, making a real world impact as well. It's absolutely wonderful. And it's funny that you mentioned forgiveness as well in your answer there, because the next question we have from one of our guild members is surrounding forgiveness. It says, forgiveness is taught as courage in this film. Why is forgiveness such a complex but powerful part of healing? That's a very good question. Luna, why don't we start with you? And then if there's anything else to add, then of course, Richie and Bethany.
Yes. Richie answer that.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I think that Bethany or Richie has a more eloquent answer for that. Sorry.
No, you're totally all right. Totally all right. So there's a question.
Do you take it or do you want me to take it?
I can start.
Okay, that sounds great.
Forgiveness, it is hard. Well, first I'll say it is essential to these stories. The two women that inspired Hope's character were adamant that forgiveness was a part of their testimony. And that is radical. That is hard. And that, that's something we approach very carefully with the subject matter, because, it's easy to talk about forgiveness in the context of the church, right? Like you hear it all the time, forgive one another, but when you say that in the comfort of a church pew, in the safety of your community, it means one thing. And that's how we meet Hope, right? She goes to church with her family. You have to listen to the pastor's sermon, but that's how we plant the seed of forgiveness. But it means one thing in this very comfortable environment. Forgiveness for Hope means something entirely different, right? It was C.S. Lewis that, once said, everyone, says forgiveness is such a lovely word until they have something to forgive, right? And it's hard, right? When you actually need to forgive somebody, it hurts and you don't want to. Especially in Hope's case, many of us will never understand the depth and the complexities in just how the horrors that these women experience, we can never fully comprehend. But that's what makes the ending so beautiful. In that Wilma, Jennifer, the character Jennifer, says to Hope, forgiveness is not about them; it's about you, and that bitterness and rage and what you're storing in your heart. When you release that and you give it to Jesus, that's really when you find freedom and peace. And so, that's something that, Brent McMinn, our executive producer, the reason that all of this was able to happen, that was the key theme that was central to the story that we were adamant on telling, and meant so much to him in hearing these stories that moved him into action to create this film. And so, this movie wouldn't be what it is if we didn't focus on forgiveness being a part of the healing process.
Yep, no, that's very well put. And bringing up the C.S. Lewis quote, I was thinking that right when you were mentioning forgiveness and talking us through it, I was like, it reminds me of that C.S. Lewis quote. And then you were like, there's this quote of like, it's yeah, so good. The next question we have is, this guild member liked how faith was very central in the story. Why do you believe that faith was extremely important to communicate in this story? And once again, whoever would like to jump in and answer that question.
I think it kind of like follows what Richie was saying about forgiveness. As Christians, as people of faith, we throw that word around all the time, right? Like, well, Jesus forgave us and we're commanded to forgive, but very rarely do we sit down to think, what does forgiveness actually mean and what does it require of us? Like, forgiveness is not just a feeling, I don't know, like any other feeling, right? But forgiveness is an action and it is a choice that is made. And I think that's why faith is important to this, of when you talk about grace and we understand who Jesus is and why Jesus had to come and die and rise again, we have to understand why that was essential for Jesus to do for us and for our souls and our salvation first, before we can ever begin to really understand why forgiveness is essential in the healing journey. Because sin and our humanness tells us hold on to that, hold on to your bitterness, hold on to your anger, that is self-serving. That's what our humanness tells us to do. That's the beautiful part where God can come in and he can say, you don't need to carry this. You don't need to hold this. And I think that's part of, even in the office scene, the first scene we see with Hope and Jennifer goes, how do you feel about forgiving the people who hurt you? Well, outside of Jesus, outside of God, like, why would you ever even consider that? That's not necessary. But it's also a very earthly understanding of what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not condoning behavior. Forgiveness is not saying what happened to you was okay. Forgiveness is not saying their behaviors were okay or justified. It's not saying, and forgiveness also isn't saying that justice should not be served. Like, forgiveness is not saying that we should forget what happened, but forgiveness is saying that I don't have to let what happened to me control me, and I don't have to carry that burden. That's theirs to carry. That's God's to carry. I don't have to carry the weight of that. And so with forgiveness being an essential part of healing, it only makes sense that faith is central to this story, because outside of faith, genuinely, I don't know how you could forgive if it wasn't for saying, okay, God, this is now yours. Yeah. I think the two are they go hand in hand. They're interwoven, and I don't think you can have forgiveness without faith.
No, very well put. Very well put, and thank you so much for sharing. We have one final guild question. Luna, I'll open the mic for you to take a whack at this question. It's a very deep one, but this guild member says, what would you like to say to someone who might watch this film, someone who feels unseen and relates to this story? Whether very strongly relates to the story, maybe they've been through something traumatic. But what would you like this film to communicate to them?
That you're not alone and you don't have to be alone. There's so many people out there that are willing to help and listen and want to see you succeed and grow in the things that you've gone through. You are so loved by so many people, even if you don't know it. And again, that it is possible to come on the other side of this with, like Bethany was saying, not forgetting, but forgiveness and faith, and just knowing that life is just beautiful on the other side of this, especially with so much love and support if you're open to it.
Yeah, yes, couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. And Richie, Bethany, Luna, thank you all for taking the time and in sharing your hearts during this interview, but also sharing your time and your passion in creating this film. I've heard the phrase, of course, every movie is a miracle because they're so hard to get made. And to use that struggle to create a piece of art like this that actually has a direction and really is being made to better the world it's beautiful to see. And I couldn't thank you all, just thank you enough for using your talents to do so. So thank you so much for taking the time. But also just the audience members, this ends our interview. But if you would like to see the movie Still Hope, which is now streaming on the Angel platform, please go to angel.com/stillhopeguild. There you can watch the movie, or if you're not a guild member, it'll take you to sign up to become a guild member, and then you can watch this absolutely wonderful, impactful film. So please take the time. And thank you again, Richie, Bethany, and Luna, for taking the time, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got to be home in a couple hours. What's the plan for tonight? I kind of feel sick. Why'd you park so far away? Where am I? I want to go home.
Your old life is dead. This is your new home.
It's possible that Hope is just a runaway teenager. But the fact that somebody else is involved and has since gone off the radar means that we can't rule out the possibility of an abduction. We are going to do everything in our power to find your daughter.
The more I trust you, the better your life is going to be.
You think she might be stable enough to come home?
I don't believe home is the best place for her. In cases like this, the physical recovery is just the beginning of the healing process. I wish I knew the right things to say.
We just got her back.
She's not back. We need to do what's best for her.
This is a safe space.
All the girls here have gone through, what I went through.
Yeah.
I just feel so angry.
You did something incredibly brave. You asked for help. Everybody heals in their own way. Gerard, you get to choose.
Shelter.